Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be ranking all the Persona games of the series. We're going to be ranking them from best to worst on a tier list. For this tier list, I'm only going to be sticking to the mainline games. We're not counting any spin-off games, so this is all mainline Persona games. I figure it would be a fun thing to do to rank the games of the series on a tier list. With Persona 3 Reload coming out in a few more months, the remake of Persona 3, I'm really excited for that game. I'm really looking forward to it. So with that being said, let's get right onto the tier list. For this tier list, we're going to be going in release order. So we're going to be beginning with Persona 1 and then going from there. Alright, so starting off with Persona 1, I would say Persona 1 is a game that I would say is the weakest game of the series. But I still think it's an okay game. To say that the worst game of a series is okay goes to show how good of a series Persona is when the worst game is okay. The worst game of the series is okay, it's not even bad or really bad. So with Persona 1, there's the original PS1 version, and then also the PSP remake. For Persona 1, I would definitely say the PSP remake has the advantage. It is a better version in my opinion. As somebody who has played both the original PlayStation 1 version and the PSP remake, the PSP remake adds a way better user interface into the game, way better graphics, and it also adds a lot of nice features into the game, like a rearranged soundtrack and also faster battle speed for battles. And the PSP version is really the way to go for Persona 1. So I'll go over the good things of Persona 1 first. So first off, the music in the PSP version is very good. The music is really enjoyable. There's a lot of good battle themes, a lot of really good area themes in the game. And the music was really well done in the PSP version of the game. Now, another good thing about the game I would say is also the storyline. The storyline has some interesting twists and turns. There's some good plot twists here and there. Some of the characters are pretty cool in the story. And it goes in some pretty interesting directions with the writing and the storytelling of the game. Another really cool thing is that in Persona 1, when you level up, you can put your points into what stacks you want. And that is something that is really cool in this game. I wish that the later Persona games also had that, but they've removed that. This and Persona 2 are the only two games where you can really do that. Later Persona games, when you level up, you can't quite customize your character like that. So those are some pretty nice things. Now we're going to get on to the flaws of Persona 1, and Persona 1 has quite a few flaws to talk about. So the first big flaw with Persona 1 I would say is the EXP system of the game. This game has that RPG type of EXP system where whoever kills an enemy is the one that gets EXP for killing the enemy. This is not a game where if like one character does a really powerful attack and it kills all the enemies, everybody gets EXP from winning the battle. And this type of experience system in RPG games is really bad because it leads to characters being unevenly leveled up. I think it's way better to have a traditional EXP system where you win the battle and everyone gets EXP, no matter who killed enemies during the battle. The second problem I would say with Persona 1 is a very high encounter rate in the game. You're constantly getting into random battles, and it's happening pretty much non-stop throughout the game. The encounter rate is way too high, and they really needed to lower the encounter rate in the game. The third problem with Persona 1 is just that the battle system doesn't compare to every other Persona game after this. Persona 2 introduced something really cool like the fusion spells. Persona 3 introduced the all-out attacks. And then Persona 4 and 5 also brought their own unique things that they added to the battle system. And Persona 1's battle system really just cannot compare to Persona 2, 3, 4, or 5's combat system. That doesn't mean it's a bad battle system or anything, but it's in comparison to Persona 2 through 5. The battle system is just not nearly as good as it is in those games. And the battle system is just very standard turn-based combat. Overall, though, I give Persona 1 an okay rating. I'm going to put it in the okay tier. Not a bad game, but also not a good or like super great game or anything like that. It's just an okay game. You know, I think it's good for maybe one playthrough or so. If you're a really, really big fan of the series, maybe multiple playthroughs. But in comparison to Persona 2 through 5, 2 through 5 are just way, way better. Alright guys, next up we're going to be talking about Persona 2. So Persona 2 is a duology. There's two Persona 2 games. There's Persona 2 Innocent Sin, which is the first half of Persona 2. And then there's Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, which is the second half and a direct sequel to Innocent Sin. Okay, so Persona 2 Innocent Sin is a massive improvement over Persona 1. It adds a lot of really great features that make the combat a lot better. And in the PSP remake they did of the game, they added a faster battle speed. They added some nice quality of life features to the game. So in the PSP version, you get the option between the original PS1 soundtrack, or you can choose a rearranged soundtrack of the game. I think more games should have that feature. So first off, what improves in Persona 2 about the gameplay? The battle system is way better. One new thing they added to the battle system is what is called fusion spells. So I'm going to go into more details about what this is here. Well, first off, in Persona 2, you got fusion spells, so you can combine Persona's attacks together to do a big fusion spell that does a lot of damage. The gameplay has a really cool rumor system where you can spread a rumor, and you can make a store open and have certain weapons or certain armor or certain items. And you can find like secret weapons by spreading a rumor about a weapon and then going and getting it. So the rumor system in the game was really, really cool. And not only is the gameplay massively improved from Persona 1, but also the story is really, really good in Persona 2 Innocent Sin. Now, Persona 2 has a really good cast of characters. The story has some really good plot twists. In this game, Persona 2 Innocent Sin, I think it has one of the best endings in any RPG ever. This game's ending absolutely crushed me when I got to the ending of the game. I was not expecting it. I went into it blind, and it was a very sad ending, and it was a very memorable ending. A lot of games end on very happy endings, and this game has a very sad tragedy that it ends on. And it was a really powerful ending. It was one of the most memorable endings I've ever seen, and I think it was a very good way to end the story of it. And the way it carries over into the sequel is really, really good. I would say that Persona 2 Innocent Sin is the better of the two Persona games to me, although Persona 2 Eternal Punishment is still a really good game. Both of the games have way better gameplay than Persona 1. The storyline is very good in both of them. The cast of characters is really great in both games. And the music in both games is really good. But Persona 2 Innocent Sin to me has the better soundtrack of the two games. Just listen to the boss theme in Persona 2 Innocent Sin, and then listen to the sequel Eternal Punishment's boss theme. The boss theme in Persona 2 Innocent Sin is a million times better. If you haven't played the game yet, it's a very good boss song. And the music in the game is just very well done. Now, if I had to say a weakness with Persona 2, I would say the weakness of the Persona 2 games is that once you get a really good fusion spell in Persona 2, you basically spam that fusion spell every random battle. And if it's a fusion spell that hits every enemy and does high damage, basically once you get a good fusion spell, you just spam that and you destroy everything in every random battle. And it becomes way too easy after that. Both of the games are way too easy once you get a good fusion spell. There might be like a tough boss fight or two in the story, but for the most part, most of the random battles are way too easy for the most part. Another reason I put Persona 2 Innocent Sin over its sequel, Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, is that Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, while the PS1 version did make some gameplay improvements, all of the gameplay improvements that the PS1 version of Persona 2 Eternal Punishment brought were carried over into the PSP remake of Persona 2 Innocent Sin. Now, one thing that's really good about Persona 2 Eternal Punishment is that the entire cast of the game is all adults, and that is a very unique thing for a Persona game because all other games of the series, the main characters are usually high school teenagers. Another good thing that Persona 2 Eternal Punishment did do, though, is that the game has higher replayability than Innocent Sin, because at one part of the main story, you got to choose a character to have join you, and depending on that character you choose, you go through a different route in the game. You go to different areas, different story scenes happen, and you get a different party member in the story. It has more replay value than Persona 2 Innocent Sin because of that. Now, the last thing I would say that Persona 2 Innocent Sin has over Eternal Punishment is that the ending in Innocent Sin is a lot more memorable to me. It really shocked me. It was a very powerful game ending. And Persona 2 Eternal Punishment also has a good game ending, but the ending did not hit me the way that Persona 2 Innocent Sin's ending did. My other flaw with both Persona 2 games is that the dungeons that you go through in the game are kind of not that exciting. There's not that many great puzzles to really solve in them. Maybe at most for a puzzle you'll have to go like find 1 or 2 items and that's about it. There's very few puzzles, very little creativity in the dungeons. So that was the aspect of Persona 2 that could have been a little bit better. But overall, both Persona 2 games are really good. I'm going to put them in the great tier. And now we're going to move on to the next game of the series, Persona 3. Alright, so Persona 3 is the first game of the series that was very popular in the West. This game was massively popular when it first released. It put the Shin Megami Tensei series on the radar for a lot of Western gamers and RPG fans. And this game is a really good game. It's a very good game that does a lot of things very good. And now there's multiple different versions of the game. Keep in mind this tier list is before Persona 3 Reload has launched. So we're going to be talking about the original Persona 3 versions, like the original and then FES and then Persona 3 Portable. So there was the original Persona 3, and of course that was the first version of Persona 3, and then later on came out the FES version. It added an entire playable extra part of the game called The Answer, which continues after the story of Persona 3, the original, and basically you see what is going on with the characters, you fight new bosses, new enemies, and there's a whole different playable part of the game. Unfortunately, in Persona 3 Portable, they took away the FES part of the game, and the answer is no longer in Persona 3 Portable, unfortunately. And there's new battle themes, new boss songs in it. Now, the problem with Persona 3 FES and Persona 3 the original is that in the combat you have forced AI control on everyone but the main character. So because of that, you can't control what your allies do at all during battle, which is a really, really bad thing in my opinion. I never like when RPG games have forced AI control. Now, thankfully, there is some really good news. The really good news is that Persona 3 Portable gives you full control over the entire party, which is a really great thing about Persona 3 Portable. But unfortunately, Persona 3 Portable has worse graphics than the PS2 version. It's missing a lot of content. But it also adds some unique gameplay features like the skill cards and also a few other things as well. So no matter what version of Persona 3 the original you're playing, whether it's Persona 3 Portable, FES, or the very, very original game, there's always some kind of flaw with it. But Persona 3, what it does very good is that the combat system is a lot of fun. You basically hit enemies' weakness, you knock them down. Each time you knock an enemy down, you get another turn. If all enemies are knocked down, you get an all-out attack, which is a big attack where everybody attacks the enemies. The all-out attacks are a ton of fun to do, and they do a lot of damage. They're really powerful. They got very cool animation. It's very cool to see them, and it's a really fun feature they added in the battle system of Persona 3. The combat is massively improved in Persona 3. The social link feature is a pretty cool feature of the game. It's a way to learn about some of the other characters in the game and learn more about them, and that was a really cool part of the game, and I really liked that a lot. Other really good features in Persona 3 is that the music in the game is really good. It's a bit different from Persona 2 and 1. There's a lot of hip-hop, a lot of other types of battle themes and music themes, and they're really good in Persona 3. The soundtrack is very good. A really great thing I can say about Persona 3, a big compliment I can give it, is the final boss fight of the game is incredible. One of my favorite final boss fights of any RPG game ever. The story and the characters are pretty good in the game. You learn quite a bit about each character of the game. There's also a few really good plot twists in the game as well. Some of my criticisms with the story would be that the second half, there's some kind of crazy character changes and plot twists that happen in the story that are kind of out of nowhere. And certain characters do like a complete 180 on their personality. And it basically like happens out of nowhere. But the main characters in the game for the most part are really likable. There's some good plot twists later in the game. Some really memorable moments in the story. And the ending of the game was also pretty good as well. It's a very powerful ending, a very memorable ending. Now we're going to talk about some downsides of Persona 3. So some of the downsides, of course, I already mentioned. Persona 3 Original and FES, you have no full control of the party. Everyone but the main character is AI controlled in those games. And then in Persona 3 Portable, you lose the FES content like the answer. But Persona 3 Portable does add a playable female protagonist and some more music to the game, so that is cool that you get a female protagonist for people who want to play as a female protagonist. Overall though, Persona 3 is a really great game, really good battle system, great final boss, great music, really cool characters, and overall a very good game. So yeah, we're going to put Persona 3 in amazing tier. And now we're moving on to Shin Megami Tensei Persona 4. Persona 4 is an amazing game. It pretty much improves upon everything from Persona 3 in every way possible. This game did a lot of massive gameplay improvements. It had a very good story, very good soundtrack, and really, really good characters. Some of the best characters I've seen in any RPG game that I've ever played. And then with Persona 4, you have Persona 4 Golden, which was an enhanced version of the game that originally came out on the Vita, and then it was ported to PC and modern consoles. And Persona 4 Golden made Persona 4 even better in every single way. More game content, more gameplay stuff, more story stuff, improving the gameplay mechanics, more songs, new unlockable stuff for the characters in the game. It made it even better. Persona 4, basically, the gameplay in the game, it didn't force the AI control like Persona 3 did. So right when you got Persona 4, an immediate improvement with the original Persona 4 was no forced AI party member control. You got full control of the entire party right at the beginning of the game. And then the battle mechanics were refined. They added the ability to take a hit for another character, so that adds more depth to the combat. The game has more variety in the dungeons you go to, so instead of going to one big tower of Tartarus the entire game like you did in Persona 3, there's multiple different dungeons in the game, each with their own theme, different song, different monsters, all that good kind of stuff. And so there's a lot more variety to the dungeons that you go to. Persona 4 had the shadow versions of the characters, which was like the bad side of them. And you learned about their fears, the things that they were worried about, and that helped you learn a lot more about the characters in Persona 4, and I felt that was a really good way that they told the story in the game. It allowed you to learn a lot more about the main characters of Persona 4 and the characters of the game, and it gave a lot of really good character development to the characters in the game. There's also the unique dynamic in Persona 4 that was introduced where you're basically a student who is living at the house of Dojima in the game, who is like your guardian that takes care of you in the game. And then you also have his daughter Nanako that's there. And basically they kind of become like your family in the game. And as you go through the game and you're living with them from day to day, you see them grow, you see the stuff they struggle with, you learn more about them. You talk to them all the time and you begin to care about them and you're like, hey, these characters are awesome. And then the social links in the game are really great. There was a lot of really interesting social links in the game. And the boss fights in the game were absolutely awesome. The music in Persona 4 was incredibly good. The boss theme, the battle theme, they're very, very good, very memorable. Persona 4 just did so much right. It really improved over Persona 3. In nearly every way imaginable. The only bad thing I can really say with Persona 4 is that the game has a slow start. It takes a little while to get going. I do wish the beginning of the game was a little bit quicker, but that's really the biggest flaw I can give Persona 4. The rest of the game is incredible. Incredible gameplay, incredible story, great characters, great music, absolutely fantastic game, a ton of fun to play, and an amazing game. This game is going in the amazing tier, so we're putting it right around there. Alright, now last we got Persona 5, and then there's the enhanced version, Persona 5 Royal, which added a bunch of content to the game, a bunch of extra story stuff, a bunch of extra gameplay stuff, a lot of new songs in the game, all that good stuff. So Persona 5 is the most popular game in the series. It's the latest game of the series, obviously, as of now. And basically, Persona 5, it did a lot of really great things. The gameplay in the game, in particular, the way you travel through the dungeons, you can travel around, sneak up on enemies. The dungeon exploration is the best of the Persona series. The palaces that you go through, which are the dungeons, are really, really good. They have a lot of variety. Really, one of the best things about Persona 5 is how good the exploration is in the dungeons. They massively improved it compared to previous games. And so the gameplay has definitely gotten better in terms of the core mechanics of the game. Story-wise, the antagonists of Persona 5 are really good. I like how each one got developed as you went to the different palaces. You saw how they went from normal people to getting corrupted. And then some palaces were even people who were like corrupt and evil, but it was different kinds of stuff. And so the palaces and learning about the antagonists was really good. Persona 5 Royal, the new palace they added at the end was great. The new final boss of the game was really good. I liked the new final boss of Persona 5 Royal even more than the original Persona 5 final boss. So Persona 5 Royal, it made a lot of really good changes. It also gave you more freedom to go do social links during the times of the day, so that was a big good change. So yeah, Persona 5 Royal was a big improvement over the original Persona 5. It just pretty much improves upon it in every single way, just like Persona 4 Golden did with the original Persona 4. It improved over the original Persona 4 in every single way. One big improvement in Persona 5 is, of course, the game has a much higher budget than previous Persona games. The graphics is a really nice art style to it. There's a lot of style to the animation in the game, and they did a very good job with the graphics. Overall, though, graphics, as somebody who's played games all the way from the NES to the latest games out there, graphics matter the least to me out of any category of a game when I review a game. For me, the top categories are gameplay, story, and music. Graphics is at the very bottom, though. Now, the weakness of Persona 5, I'm going to say, is that while Persona 4 has worse gameplay than 5, I think that Persona 5 has better gameplay than 4, but it has a worse story. I think Persona 4 had a better cast of characters, better story, and I overall liked the story and characters in 4 more. But Persona 5 still has a very good cast of characters, a very good story, and it's a really, really good cast of characters in Persona 5. Overall, Persona 5 is also an amazing game. The Persona 5 Royal version completely improves upon the original, and it makes Persona 5 even better. So I'm going to put Persona 5 in the amazing tier, and then overall I'm going to put Persona 4 Golden in the best tier. I'm going to go over why Persona 4 Golden is my favorite. It's kind of a personal reason. When I played through Persona 4, it was at a point in time where all my friends had actually gotten the game too at that point in time. And I would go to school because I was in high school at the time Persona 4 released. And we would go and we would talk about it every day. And those were some of the best memories I have of that game. Some really great memories. And when I think back on that, it makes me really happy. It was a really cool thing to talk about the game with them. So that is why Persona 4 is the best game of the series for me, my favorite game. Persona 5 improves a lot of stuff over 4, but 4 is always going to be my favorite for that personal reason. As always, I want to say a big thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more RPG content. Thank you all very much. I super greatly appreciate it. And I will catch you all in the next video. Thank you all so much. Everybody have a good one.